everyone. A very good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television. I'm your host, Frank Pereira. Here are the latest headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi back in India after the SAARC summit. Agreement on energy sharing on the last day comes as a saving grace amid a handshake at last between Modi and Sharif. In Jammu and Kashmir, the army calls on tanks to flush out terrorists in the Qatar village of Arnia sector. 4 terrorists among 11 people killed in the encounter. Terminate Chennai Super Kings from the IPL, says the Supreme Court rules that persons named in the Mudgal report, including Srinivasan, cannot contest BCCI elections. A boost for the tourism and business sector. Government launches online visa facility for 43 nations. Scheme to be expanded to other nations in phases. And WTO agrees to implement landmark trade facilitation agreement. The deal comes after resolution of India's concerns on food security. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is back in New Delhi after the SAARC summit in Kathmandu. Modi returned last night after a 3-day visit to Nepal, where he attended the 18th SAARC summit and held bilateral talks with leaders of neighbouring countries. Conspicuously absent in this list, of course, was a meeting with Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. Though the two did exchange brief pleasantries yesterday, the summit overall, however, made little headway on connectivity and other regional issues. Thank you, Kathmandu, were the Prime Minister's words as he returned to India.
A brief handshake and some pleasantries. It was an exclusive India-Pakistan moment during the SAARC summit.
We go back very satisfied with the outcome of the summit. India is for peaceful and cooperative relations with Pakistan. We are interested in meaningful dialogue. If this interaction today or this shake hand leads to that, we would welcome that.
Both Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Pakistan Premier Nawaz Sharif reportedly also held private, unofficial talks in a more informal atmosphere.
The retreat have generated a momentum in enhancing mutual trust and confidence, goodwill and understanding, as well as the spirit of togetherness towards realizing common objectives.
Member countries signed a deal to create a seamless electricity grid, seen as the only silver lining in the summit, after Pakistan declined to sign 3 multilateral pacts.
There were 3 agreements that were under discussion. 2 of them, they have not been finalized, and Pakistan is not the only country that has not completed its internal procedures. The reason was that there was an expert group meeting. The agreements after that meeting had not been put up to the ministers.
SAARC foreign ministers, including Sushma Swaraj, India's External Affairs Minister, and Sartaj Aziz, Pakistan PM's advisor on foreign affairs, were also present at the retreat. A lack of warmth between the prime ministers at the SAARC was held responsible for the lackluster summit, although Modi did applaud before and after Sharif's vote of thanks as the host for the next SAARC summit in Islamabad next year.
Even after 3 decades of its formation, SAARC has not been able to take off fully. Once again, SAARC was overshadowed by the hostilities between India and Pakistan. The only face saver was the Energy Pact. In Kathmandu, with camera person Manoj Kumar, Arfa Khanam Sherwani for Rajya Sabha television.
Back home, a day before Prime Minister Modi's election rally in Udhampur, terrorists struck in Jammu's Arnia, leaving 10 people dead. The attack comes days after the army issued a warning saying terrorists plan to disrupt the polling process. Less than 24 hours after the army issued the warning of a possible militant strike ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Jammu, militants struck again. A gun battle between militants and security forces resulted in 9 casualties, including 3 civilians and 3 army men. Several areas have been put on high alert ahead of the tanks, and tanks have been called in ahead of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's rally scheduled today in Udhampur and Poonch districts.
पूरा एरिया जो है अब उसको हम लोग सर्च कर रहे हैं, अपने लोगों को वहां पे भेजा है इसके बारे में जानकारी इकट्ठी करने के लिए कि कोई यहां से जो लोग आए हैं उनमें से स्प्लिंटर ग्रुप निकल के और यहां से कहीं निकला तो नहीं है।
Moving on now, the decision of State Bank of India to give $1 billion loan for Adani Group's coal project echoed in the Rajya Sabha on Thursday. TMC MP Derek O'Brien said that the move smacked of blatant crony capitalism. Here's a report.
Derek O'Brien raised the issue in 0 hour. He said the SBI signed an MOU pledging one of the single largest loans to a corporate house, despite 5 international banks refusing to lend to the Adani project.
5 leading banks of the world, Citibank, Deutsche Bank, Royal Bank of Scotland, HSBC and Barclays, denied giving funds for this project in Australia. They denied giving funds. Why? Because they said coal mining in Australia is in structural decline. 2, they said coal prices have fallen by 50% in the last 3 years and will continue to fall. They also gave some environmental reasons. I don't want to get into that.
O'Brien also saw contradictions in the Prime Minister's thrust on the coal mining in Australia and Coal Minister Piyush Goyal's statement that India will be able to stop coal imports in the next 2 years. Without naming Adani Group Chairman Gautam Adani, O'Brien said he was with the Prime Minister every day during his visit to Australia.
And I'm not surprised that the Minister has got up to defend because of this perception, the Adani share has gone up by 85%.
Parliamentary Affairs Minister M. Venkaiah Naidu retorted, saying 20 people were in the business delegation that went to Australia.
The honourable member has got every right to raise the issue and question the decision of the bank also. That is for the concerned authorities, they will respond. But the honourable member has taken the name of the honourable Prime Minister, which is highly objectionable.
Members from the left, Congress and SP also associated themselves with the issue raised by the TMC member. Priti Mishra, Rajya Sabha TV.
Moving on to some sports-related news now. In a decisive setback to the BCCI President-in-exile N. Srinivasan, the Supreme Court has observed that IPL team Chennai Super Kings owned by him should be terminated without further inquiry. The court said that the CSK must go as one of its officials, Gurunath Mayappan, has been indicted for betting by an inquiry committee. Mayappan is the son-in-law of Srinivasan, who is himself facing questions on conflict of interest. And in a further setback for Srinivasan, the Supreme Court proposed fresh elections in the BCCI. It said elections can be held, but persons named in the report will not contest, and the new board will take a decision on the scam. Srinivasan is seeking a clean chit from the Supreme Court to contest the BCCI elections and win another term as president.
I feel that it's not only Mr. Srinivasan, it's just the tip of an iceberg. What about those who are in the governing council, the members who were either presidents or chairmen of their association, members of their association who were in the governing council? They violated laws in 2009 when the IPL was taken to South Africa. FEMA violation, FERA violation, FDI violation, RBI violations. There's so many of them. I don't know what has happened to that.
Well, we'll slip into a short break now, but still to come, OPEC nations decide not to cut production despite huge oil supplies. Global oil prices plunge. That and much more. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television. Well, tourists and business visitors coming to India from 43 countries can now get their visas online. An e-visa facility for 43 countries has been operationalized at 9 Indian airports from Thursday. Union Home Minister Rajnath Singh launched the tourist visa on arrival service enabled with the Electronic Travel Authorization Scheme in New Delhi. This visa will allow entry into India within 30 days from the date of approval of the ETA or Electronic Travel Authorization and will be valid for a 30-day stay in the country from the date of arrival. The facility will be extended to other nations in a phased manner.
जो भी टूरिस्ट आएंगे, जो भी फ्रेमवर्क हमें तैयार करना हो, हम फ्रेमवर्क तैयार करेंगे, लेकिन सेफ एंड सिक्योर्ड कैसे उन्हें उनकी टूर को बनाया जा सकता है, यह बनाने की हम अपनी तरफ से भरपूर कोशिश करेंगे.
Well, joining me for a chat this morning on this very subject is former Ambassador Suresh K. Goyal. A very good morning, Ambassador, and thank you for joining me on the program. Ambassador, the Indian government has decided to issue this e-visa facility to 43 nations and is planning to extend this over a period of time to other countries as well. How is it really going to help tourism in the country, and what kind of an impact is it going to have on India?
I think it's a very helpful policy decision to introduce the electronic visa on arrival. Most of the problems in terms of the time taken for issue of visa is really the physical movement necessary for an applicant to come to a mission or a consulate, a visa issuing authority, where the passports are checked and everything. And with the decision to issue electronic visas on arrival, all that physical movement required for people to come to the actual point will be obviated. And with the time taken only 3 days for clearance, I think it's going to be very, very helpful to the tourists.
All right,
and also the short-term business people.
Indeed, it is going to be helpful in that manner, but doesn't it also pose a security threat?
Not really. You have 3 days to check all the details which have been given by a person on his visa application form online, and it gives enough time for our security agencies to check on those things. In any event, the checks are really done on the information which has been given by the person really in the application, so I really don't see any security lapse in the process in this whole thing really.
Some of the sensitive countries like Pakistan, Iraq and a few others have been left out from this e-visa policy. Of course, can we see them being included sometime later, maybe, in a few months or maybe in a couple of years as well?
I certainly see that could happen as the situation or the relations between India and Pakistan and the security concerns, they get ironed out. I certainly see the possibility of being able to issue the electronic visa to any of these sensitive countries. It's only a matter of time and procedures to be put in place really. As I said earlier, if we have a system in place where we can check all the details given by the applicant, I really see no difficulty at all or any security difficulty in introducing the system for every country.
All right, we'll have to leave it at that. Thank you so much, Ambassador Goyal, for joining us on the program this morning and sharing your views on this very subject. Moving on now, let's take a look at some potential news-making events lined up for the day today in our special segment, The Day Ahead. The BJP government in Maharashtra, led by Devendra Fadnavis, is set to offer cabinet berths to Sena leaders in the state. Party leaders will hold talks with Sena Supremo Uddhav Thackeray in Mumbai today to make the offer. If the Sena agrees, it will be a part of the NDA government in the state. The party is currently the main opposition party in the Maharashtra Assembly. Well, the GDP figures for the second quarter, that is July to September, will be released today. The figures in this quarter are expected to show a slow economic growth in comparison to the previous quarter, where the GDP stood at 5.7%. In the last fiscal, GDP growth during the second quarter was 5.7%. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will address two rallies in Jammu and Kashmir today, one in Udhampur and the other in Poonch this afternoon. Senior party leader and Home Minister Rajnath Singh will campaign for the party candidates in Uri, Pahalgam and Karna constituencies. Congress leader, meanwhile, Ghulam Nabi Azad, will also address a series of rallies. The second phase of elections in Jammu and Kashmir will take place on the 2nd of December. Meanwhile, Rahul Gandhi is to campaign in Jharkhand. Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi will raise the poll pitch in Jharkhand today. He will address two rallies in Chaibasa and Jagannathpur constituencies of West Singhbhum districts. Both these constituencies go to polls in the second phase of assembly polls on December 2nd. The Supreme Court will hear Sahara's plea on the 47,000 crore rupees repayment case today. The court may also take up Sahara's plea on the medical treatment to its chief Subroto Roy after the group's lawyers told the Apex Court that Roy is suffering from high blood pressure and is likely to suffer a stroke. The Delhi High Court will deliver its judgment today on the issue of nursery admissions in the capital. Today's decision could have a bearing on the admission process for the coming academic year of 2015-16. The Lieutenant Governor had on December 18th last year issued guidelines, after which a bunch of petitions were filed. He was expected to issue fresh guidelines earlier this month. Self-styled godman Rampal, who was arrested last week from his ashram in Hisar, will be produced before the Punjab and Haryana court today. He is presently in judicial custody. Tight security arrangements have been made in and around the court premises. Last week, the High Court had cancelled Rampal's bail in the 2006 murder case in which he was co-accused. Former Union Minister G.K. Vasan, who parted ways with the Congress, is to launch his new political party today. He will announce the name of his party at a public meeting in Trichy. Earlier this week, Vasan unveiled his party flag, which retains the tricolored motif. Vasan broke away from the Congress after the Lok Sabha debacle. Moving on now, the World Trade Organization signed the Trade Facilitation Agreement last night after almost 11 months of parleys. The Land Global Trade Deal comes after the body agreed earlier this month to India's demand for a perpetual peace clause. The agreement means that the WTO will introduce new standards for customs checks and border procedures. Proponents say that streamlining the flow of trade will add as much as $1 trillion and 21 million jobs to the world economy. 2 weeks back, India and the US reached an agreement under which subsidy given by the Indian government to its farmers through minimum support price will not be challenged even if it breached the set limits. The historic trade facilitation agreement would now need to be ratified by governments of individual member countries, including India, for coming into effect, which is expected sometime next year. Well, let's take a look now at some other news and updates from around the globe in our World Wrap. Global crude oil prices are down by more than $6 to just over $72 a barrel after a meeting of OPEC oil-producing countries decided not to cut production from 30 million barrels per day despite a huge oversupply in world markets. This is the lowest since August 2010. For India, this is likely to mean a drop in diesel and petrol prices as both have been decontrolled. Tension eased in the St. Louis suburb of Ferguson on Thursday after 2 nights of violence and looting sparked by racially charged anger over a grand jury's decision not to charge a white police officer for fatally shooting an unarmed black teenager. Protests also dwindled elsewhere in the United States as the Thanksgiving Day holiday and wintry weather kept many indoors. Egypt braces for a wave of new Islamist protests on Friday. The Salafist Front has called for protests dubbed the Identity Battle and the Muslim Youth Uprising, through which it aims to restore Islamic identity and Sharia law in the country, the group declared in statements on their Facebook page. The protest has gained attention after months of low-level street activity from supporters of ousted Islamist President Mohammad Morsi, apart from protests at universities. At least 25 people are reported killed in an explosion in northeastern Nigeria's Adamawa state. The blast was caused by a roadside bomb and occurred near the town of Mubi, close to the Cameroonian border. This week, Mubi was recaptured from Islamist group Boko Haram, which controls many towns in the region. In April, the group kidnapped more than 200 schoolgirls in the town of Chibok, causing international outrage. Well, here's a look now at the stock and bullion markets. Major US markets are closed due to Thanksgiving holiday. At home, gold prices slipped by 50 rupees or 0.24% to conclude at 26,350 per 10 grams on Thursday due to reduced offtake from jewelry stockists and local investors amid uneasiness in global markets. Silver also dropped sharply by 255 rupees or 0.64% to finish at 37,135 per kilogram, owing to heavy speculative sell-off and sluggish industrial demand. Most Asian stocks rose today as Japanese equities advanced as investors weighed economic data including inflation. Japan's Nikkei is up 111.17 points or 0.64% to 17,359 at the start of today's trading. while Hong Kong's Hang Seng rose 87.23 points, so 0.45% to 24,001 as the trading began. We'll take another short break here. All the sports updates lined up for you on the other side. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Well, reactions of shock and condolence continue to pour in from around the world after young Australian cricketer Phil Hughes passed away yesterday. For 2 days after Hughes was hit by a cricket ball when at the crease at the Sydney Cricket Ground, the world had held its breath. Many cricket fixtures around the world have been cancelled as a mark of respect.
This statement is on behalf of Greg, Virginia, Jason and Megan Hughes. We're devastated by the loss of our much-loved son and brother Philip. It's been a very difficult few days. We appreciate all the support we have received from family, friends, players, Cricket Australia and the general public. Cricket was Philip's life and we as a family shared that love of the game with him.
The entire cricketing fraternity stood united in grief at the death of Australian cricketer Phil Hughes. 25-year-old Hughes died in hospital on Thursday, 2 days after he was struck on the head by a ball during a domestic match.
We are all very shocked and saddened by the tragic news of Philip Hughes' passing. I think all those who've played cricket, who play cricket, who have children playing cricket are devastated by this news across the world. And our thoughts and prayers are with Philip Hughes' family and his friends.
Hughes was struck on the head by a short-pitched delivery from pacer Sean Abbott, a devastating blow that experts compared to the trauma suffered by car crash victims. Hughes had taken the cricketing world by storm when he made his Test debut in 2009, scoring a mountain of runs despite his unconventional technique.
This time he didn't hold the position, he started to try.
He had scored 63 runs before being struck on Tuesday, his last innings set to be an audition to replace injured captain Michael Clarke for the first Test.
It's the one that was caught Guptill Bowl Martin.
Many cricketing nations cancelled their scheduled matches and appointments as a mark of respect for Hughes. A two-day tour match between India and a Cricket Australia 11 has also been cancelled.
When you start enjoying it, and you don't want to give it up. So
the second day's play in the third Test between Pakistan and New Zealand in Sharjah was also abandoned as a mark of respect. In Australia, all Sheffield Shield matches were cancelled after Hughes suffered the injury, and now Cricket Australia faces a big decision on whether to go ahead with the opening Test of the summer against India next week.
Truly a great loss there for the game of cricket. Moving on now, let's bring you up to date with the other sports updates from the sporting arenas across the world in our Sports Beat. Three-time World Cup winner Pele has been admitted to a special care unit in a Sao Paulo hospital. The 74-year-old former Brazilian forward is said to be suffering primarily from a urinary tract infection and is said to be serious. Pele, often called the greatest soccer player in the history of the game, has suffered a long list of health problems in the past decade, including emergency eye surgery for a detached retina and a hip replacement surgery. Northeast United pumped in 3 first-half goals in a rampaging show to drub table toppers Chennai FC 3-0 in an absorbing Hero Indian Super League match to keep their hopes of a semi-final berth alive on Thursday. After Thursday's win, Northeast have jumped to the 5th spot with 13 points from 11 matches, while Chennai remained on top of the league table with 19 points from 11 matches. PV Sindhu and HS Pranoy entered the quarterfinals of the women's and men's singles of the Macau Grand Prix Gold after posting hard-fought victories in their respective matches on Thursday. The seeded second Sindhu was initially trailing behind the Indonesian girl before winning in a contest that lasted for an hour and 5 minutes. Pranoy, seeded third came from a game down to register a 17-21, 21-19, 21-14 win over Lin Yu Sen of Chinese Taipei. The World Governing Body of Football has suspended former All India Football Federation General Secretary Alberto Colasso from all football-related activities for a period of 3 years for indulging in corrupt practices. FIFA found Colasso guilty of accepting a payment in the context of the elections for the FIFA Executive Committee at the AFC Congress in May 2009. And finally, the Thanksgiving Day Parade by retail store Macy's in New York is a hallowed tradition going back to the 1920s, and it gives out the same magic every time. I'm going to leave you today with the visuals from this event. Have a nice day.